How do I get started in Linux? It's one of the most common Linux questions you'll see on the internet. The go-to response for most of us Linux YouTubers is to just use it. I have given this response multiple times myself and in many of my videos, especially this year. And it's a good response, but I can still see a lot of newer Linux users saying, but where do I start? The back and forth could continue for a while, so I'm just going to make it easy for you. This is B from Talk Tech, and today I'm going to show you 5 commands to get you started in Linux, so stick with me. I have a favor to ask. If you like this type of video and want to see more content like it, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications. Also, don't forget to give this video a like if you like it. Let me know what you liked, didn't like, or if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or emotional outbursts down in the comments below. And lastly, stick around all the way to the end to get the most out of this video. Let's do this thing. All right, so let me go ahead and get myself over here to the desktop. All right, so let me go ahead and talk to you about the way that I'm going to be presenting this information. So with this video, I'm taking the perspective of a person who is brand new to Linux. Now, just because you're a Linux veteran does not mean that you cannot benefit from this material. One of the things that I really like to do, even as a veteran user, is I love watching, intro to this, intro to that, because it takes me back to that mindset of where I was when I first started out, and it helps keep this information fresh. And also, hearing different perspectives from my own gives me a much better understanding of these commands, because somebody may be presenting some information about a command that I've never thought of, and that benefits me and anybody else that I pass the information on to. So I highly encourage you to stick around. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We're going to go ahead and put on our first command. The first command is going to be IP address. Now, the actual command that I'm showing you here is actually IP with the object set of address. And what the IP command does, that it allows us to interact with the networking on the system. And specifically, when we use the object address, it's going to allow us to see networking addressing information for our particular system. So let's go ahead and hit enter on this command. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and take myself out of the shot here, just so we can go ahead and get a better look at this, because I want to make sure you're able to see all of the information. Now, we've got quite a bit of information here, and we actually have 4 separate interfaces that we're looking at here. So the first one, and one that's on any system that's out there, is the loopback interface, which is this one right here. And essentially what the loopback does is it points back to the host itself. It says, hey, this is where I am. I am here. I am 127.0.0.1, and you're going to see this Linux, Mac, Windows, all the same for the host itself. Now, the next one is going to be the second one right here. And this is going to be, in this particular case, it's going to be an Ethernet interface. The Ethernet interface is the one that's directly connected to, a switch, maybe even a router, or a combination of both of those put together. And it's going to be connected by a cable. That is this one right here. Now, if you notice something here, if you scroll through this information, and I'm not going to get into too much of the specifics here, but you can see that this right here says state down. It's because I do not currently have this connected through a switch. It is connected over Wi-Fi, so that's why you don't see anything here. But it will look something like this, and this will vary depending on the type of Wi-Fi device that you have on your system. I'm sorry, Ethernet device that you have on your system for that NIC, or network interface card. Now, this next one is going to be the Wi-Fi interface. And if we look over here, it says state up. And the IP address is going to be this one right here. All right, and this gives us our wireless internet address. And again, this is going to depend on the type of device that you have inside of your system. So it may look a little bit different on every system, but that's what you're looking for. Usually it's going to start with a W, and the Ethernet will start with an E, typically, at least in my experience. I know that that's not always the case, but generally. All right, and the last one here that we actually have a Docker interface. I don't actually have Docker running on this system currently, but it is there. And this is for the actual Docker bridge network. So we can see that here, if we look down here, we've got a network we've got the address here, and everything like that. But this is a bridge, and basically what a bridge does is it's basically allowing a Docker container to connect through this bridge through our system's NIC and allow it to get out to the internet through that. So this is how it gets back to that. It gets back to that Docker network. So that's what the IP address command looks like. Now, if you have any more questions about IP, what I highly encourage you to do, let me just bring myself back up here on screen, is you can always go ahead and just do man IP, and that'll let you do the man page, or you can do IP tac help, and that'll give you some other information. The man page can typically be a little bit more useful just because it gives you a lot more detailed information on interacting with that command. And typically most commands are going to have a man page and the tac help option that's going to be available. Sometimes it may not work with tac help, but you can also use either you can typically also use tac h to go ahead and bring up that help information if you want. So usually it's most helpful with simple commands. The IP stack of commands is pretty, I don't want to say sophisticated, but it's pretty, you can do quite a bit with it. It's got a lot. It's a very robust command. So there's a lot that it can do and it's capable of. So that's why, it's usually better to go to the man page. All right, so let's move on to the next command. All right, now the next command that we're going to talk about is who am I? You always want to know who you are when you're signing into a system, because you could end up, say you think you're logged in as one user but you're actually logged in as another user. That could explain why maybe you're having some issues executing some commands or something like that. But the way you tell what user you are on a system is you're going to go and use who am I. All right, this is going to tell us who we are in the system. And you may respond and say, hey, but it tells me over here that this is my user and this is the host. But that's not always going to be there. It really just depends on the configuration of it. I've logged in some servers and I'm like, well, I have no idea who I am. Yeah, I SSH'd like with this, but like, who am I? And it could be the case where you're actually using a console. You go into the server and you're in a console and you already see a user logged in. You're like, oh, okay. All right, well, who am I? And who's, maybe somebody left themselves logged in or something like that. So it's good to be able to identify who you are. And this is what it's going to look like when you do that. It's going to tell me that I am B. So pretty helpful for a command for those types of things. Now, kind of keeping with the same theme of identification is you may not have this here. You may not be able to tell what system you are. Maybe it has your username there, but it doesn't have your actual host name. So how do you find out the host name of your device? And that's going to be pretty easy. That's going to be host name. And this is going to tell us that this is in. I actually before I started this video, I realized that I wanted to go ahead and change the. The name of this device. So I actually changed it, but it hasn't updated yet here in the I always forget what this thing is called, but the leading part of the input. So yeah, this is I usually like to have them identified with the operating system as well as like the location, because this is my laptop, so I put laptop on there. So that's how I usually like to do it, just so I know what's what. But yeah, that's how you tell what the host is. Now again, keeping with the theme of identification, how do you know where you're at on a system? Again, you may say the same thing, because if I go in here and I go to Etsy, let's just say path. I can't think of a directory off the top of my head. Let's just go with Etsy, and then you're here. Yeah, you can see it up there. But what if that's not available? The way that you can get around that and be able to show what directory you're in is going to be PWD, which stands for print working directory, and that's going to allow you to see what directory location you are on the system, because it's not always going to be the case where this information is given to you. So it's very, very important that you're able to know these very low-level basic commands to be able to know who you are, where you're at, and on what system you are. So let's go ahead and execute that, and it tells us that we're in the /Etsy directory. Now, this next command is going to be the command plus an option, and that is going to be the ls tac l command. Now, ls stands for list, and then we're going to add the tac l to give us a long listing. Now, we want to go ahead and use this tac l option because this is going to give us information about each file. If you don't do that, it's going to give you just kind of like the file name, and that's about it. But I always like seeing details about the files in the system. And you can add the option A to this, which will show you even hidden files, but most of the time I'm not really worried about hidden files. So I usually just use it with TAC-L. That's the way that I like to utilize this command. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And we can see all this information in a nice list format, which is super helpful. Gives us, permission information, tells us whether it's the directory or not, ownership information, size information, modification information, as well as name information about that particular file. So that's why I really like to use this command. So awesome. Now, if I had known these commands right from the jump, my Linux journey would have been a much easier experience, but the journey takes different forms for everybody, and I'm really hoping that these 5 commands are great to help get you started on your Linux journey. So please feel free to play around with these commands and experiment. This is something that I could make into a series, so let me know what your thoughts are on that down in the comment section below, and make sure to check out this other video from my channel as well. Remember, mistakes make you better, so keep on making them. Thank you so much for watching my video, and have the greatest of days.